All right, Larry Bailey here, Mortgage Workflow Partners. We're going to finish up. This is part two for the Encompass web version release preview for the 24.3 major release happening on December 7th, as of right now. So, where I left you last was me kind of getting really super excited about the buttons here for e disclosures, especially now being put into persona access to fields, business rules, instead of where we had to do it normally and where we still have to do it really with 24.2 in field data entry. I went back and checked the release notes for desktop and I couldn't find it. So I don't know why it's here, but it is. So there you go. So let's keep on going here. We're at the bottom of page 71 and we're now with the Encompass settings. So updates for personas settings and the file contacts tool. So the following updates have been made for persona settings relative to the file contacts tool. So when viewing a milestone, like whatever the milestones are, I'm sorry, milestone roles, regardless of the permissions configured in the persona settings for assigning loan team members, the name field is always read only, and there's no lookup icon. We know that, right? So when you're in the file contacts tool, so it's handled here. So what's the enhancement? Oh, okay. So in 24.3 web, you don't have that lookup tool. Now you have the lookup tool. Well, so that's pretty cool. So now what's happening is in web, if you go into your persona setting, again, hopefully you know this, you've got the ability to now pick the people. Now there's no, in the file contacts tool in web, there was not a lookup icon there. Now there's a lookup icon in there. And so make sure that you read this part. We're on page 73 now. Make sure you understand this whole thing, grant right access to loan team members. If you're granting right access to loan team members through this persona setting, I don't personally advocate for that. I think it's a challenge with understanding who's writing to which loan. That should be done through persona access to loan files. But if you're requiring to do this, this is obviously another touch where you can come in and look at that. There's that checkbox. Okay, so that was on page 74. Again, I don't personally and professionally advocate for giving right access through at the user level. That's what rules are for. All right, there's a new URL field now populated. Okay, so we know this from desktop. So now that's in, they're just reminding you here. We already went over that. In workflow management updates here, there's a new request send documents resulting action and workflow rules. Yeah, this is a big deal. So when you go through a workflow rule, you now have in the results, you now have an option for enabling lenders to send documents and or request documents when the rule is triggered. So for everybody who's out there who's not using Consumer Connect and you're doing this, part of the reason is because you like to set up like an automatic list for borrowers to receive document requests. That's now in here. Also, if you like to send things to your borrower automatically, like, I don't know, the appraisal or something like that, you now have the ability to configure this. So imagine you build a workflow rule that says once the appraisal is accepted, bang, you actually send them a workflow rule where you can send them a copy of your appraisal. Now, I know some of you have your AMCs doing that. Kudos for you. There's lots of companies that don't. They actually use third-party tech to automatically send documents to borrowers. You can now do it here in workflow. So think about that. Nested action is support added to order service resulting action. So we've got nested actions now. Remember, as a reminder, nested actions gives you the ability to give you notifications or even send a notification out or create a task. Create a task if it fails, like the task is to go manage it. Notification lets you know it's happened. These are one of the two of the use cases for nested actions. You can also configure multiple conditions in one rule. So now you have that option. That's on bottom of page 75 into 76. There was a missing configuration indicator before, and now that's been added. And this is specifically an indicator that lets you know that if there's an inactive rule missing a component, or an inactive rule indicates the active rule is missing a component. So there's a yellow kind of triangle there and a red kind of triangle. Hopefully you can see that coloring okay. In the task management, we're in page 76, task management. You've got support added for more forms and tools and task workspaces. Again, this is another call out for workflow tasks, using them in web because you have these task workspaces that you don't get in desktop. So if you have somebody who's doing home counselor provider, you can put that in. Hopefully you've automated that, right? In the settlement service provider list, again, if you're using a third-party fee engine, that should be filling in for you automatically. Borrower information investing is pretty cool because that could be for title. Like if you got a title review department, You can put that into a task workspace. Same thing with request for transcript of tax. If you've got somebody doing that, now you can put that into a workflow task and just take them to there in the task workspace instead of worrying about an input form. You've also got tools added to that for funding worksheet, disclosure tracking, and appraisal management. All three big pickups for workflow tasks for those teams. Every single one of those, I know I've got folks that are managing tasks for all kinds of things, whether it's CICs or COC, if you call it that, appraisal, ordering, managing of such, and then also funding worksheet if you've got somebody balancing out CDs. Task pipeline enhancements have been made to streamline, blah, 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 a new copy option. So this is going back up to the top. There's no image here, which is weird. So if you go into your task pipeline now, you couldn't copy the loan number because if you click on it to copy, it just opens it up. So there'll be a little icon there next to it. So you can click copy. Why do you want this? It copies a loan number because if you have somebody not working in web, but they're working in desktop, it allows them to, instead of rekeying it, click copy and then paste. So it's a little user enhancement for those that are still kind of living in two worlds, where you've got the task pipeline over here on one screen and you've got your Encompass over here on the other screen. If you're using ICE mortgage analyzers, you've got a new compare and import tool to manage. That's at the bottom of page 77. There's some imaging for that. Analyzer message notifications updated. That's again all on web. So if you're using Analyzer, you've got a lot of great functionality now on web. Secondary marketing, for those that are using ICE PPE, you've got Surefire now added. So this allows you to include real-time loan program comparisons driven from the ICE PPE. So if you're using Surefire, you can now you can leverage opportunities, but if you're using Surefire now, you can actually do loan level comparison with live pricing inside of Surefire. According to this, the functionality will be available shortly after release of ICE PPE 24.3. So there you go. Prospect engagement. You now have the ability SMS report calculations on invite/reminder for SMS are now supported. So if you're doing prospecting, this is really, it doesn't talk about it. I don't know. No, it doesn't really talk about it, but that's really if you're using SMS engaging through Velocify, or I don't know if that's ICRM or not. I know Velocify supports SMS. I don't know. But those are the updates. Let's get into fixed issues now. We've got a bunch to go through here. First thing we've got is update for selecting checkboxes and radio buttons. So it's just making sure that your pixels are aligned. So if you had some problems with clicking checkboxes or radio buttons, that's been fixed. Updating logic to determine if prepayment penalty is included in section 32. That's the same thing we went over in desktop. Construction loan updates, same as desktop. APR violations for construction loans. If you're doing construction loans, check out page at least 84, 85 to go through the updates. That's all in there. You've got an issue resolved for second loans no longer including proposed payment twice. Again, same thing we covered in desktop fix. FHA lender now includes branch ID. Again, same as desktop. Calculate ULI button now operates correctly. So this is a call out. If you've actually did a workaround for calculating the ULI for correspondent loans, that's been resolved now. Date fields retaining original data as expected. We've also got some more correspondent updates here. We're now flying through this down to page 88. Business contacts now displaying correctly in web. So if you try to get to business contacts in web before, that's now going to be resolved with 24.3. Public business contacts now available to add in loan file. So that is, some users receive an error message. That error message has been resolved with this. So we got that done. We're now on page 89. Update to ensure application view screens open top of screen as expected. So that was a UI fix for web. Users now able to successfully add 10 or more liabilities. Another UI fix. Plain code field now read only and alerts. That's cool. UI fix on that. Cards on custom input forms linked to other custom forms now working consistently. So listen, I'm all about card view. Like, I'm doing a lot of really cool stuff with card views. We're going to be talking more about this in December into January with some really strong offerings from Mortgage Workflow Partners talking about how to rebuild and relaunch your teams into Encompass Web, specifically with a great workflow already mapped out for you, kind of like as ICE puts it, innovation journey. So ways to actually show you what is working for other people to either have you use it or have it inspire you of how to use it. Continue on here, page 90. We've got fields with locks now updating correctly. Updates on the monthly subsidy amount calculation for interest-only buy-down loans. That was a big deal. Buy-downs are back, and now there's interest-only buy-downs, right? Why not? So that calculation is now working properly. We've got some updates to EDM, and that's the Encompass Document Management, aka eFolder. Updates to help prevent inadvertently sending document packages multiple times. So there's a problem where if you clicked it more than once, it'll send more than once. So that's been resolved. The XPS and EMF files are now uploading correctly. So if you had an XPS file or an EMF file to the eFolder, sometimes you were receiving a file not supported. That's been fixed. Receive date can now be updated. So there were some issues where you couldn't update that before. Now you can, right? And that's important. Date of last attachment now displayed as expected. I found a lot of folks don't actually know about this column in eFolder. So date of last attachment helps you see very clearly when the last file was attached to that document. So we all know, right? If you take a file, you take a document and it has added, and then you put a file in that, it goes received, right? But now if you put another file in that a couple of days later, the receive date doesn't change. So what do you do? So make sure you use date of last attachment. That's a column header you can add. And you can now see clearly what's going on in all of your eFolder right there, just like that. File upload time now reflects standard time format. So standard 12-hour format instead of military time. As far as which time zone, I'm sure it's on your mind, right? A file was attached, it would upload time would be 1409. Oh, is it consistent with format used for? My guess is it's going to take your local machine time. I don't know. I'll have to see. Signer's contact information not required to send documents to partners. Okay. So sometimes you got an error due to missing contact information. That's been resolved. Branch contact information now provided as expected on e-consent agreement. So yeah, so if you have in your settings, it's probably down here. Yeah, in your settings, if you check that box, which I have yet to find a company that does that, but obviously somebody does. So that's now working as expected. That we covered that in desktop. Persona access rights created, new document folder now being enforced as expected. So when setting up persona access rights, you had an issue. If you had this checked and it wasn't working as expected, that's now working as expected. Update in the eFolder for the edit file persona permission. When setting up access rights, can select company user, eFolder, get permissions, unassigned documents. Oh, okay. So that's now, you're now able to do this in the unassigned. So if you're using unassigned and you're having some issues with regards to editing those files, there's an update to the edit file persona permission. So we'll have to go through that. Issue resolved, Encompass eClose not accessible. If user permission does not have eClose setup. So that was an issue that's resolved. Okay. Going on to page 95 now, we've got updates to Encompass settings, persona access to fields, business rules now enforced correctly for payment. Again, more things happening where if Encompass wasn't behaving properly before, this has been resolved hopefully for you now. Issue resolved for borrower seller paid fields not displaying for some users on fee itemization. That's a UI problem that was fixed. We've also got rules update for lock request forms base price field. We talked about that in desktop. Rate and dollar amounts now displaying correctly on loan summary bar. So this is a UI thing in web, so that on the custom loan summary bar, if you were having problems, that's been resolved. That's on the bottom of page 97 and top of page 98. If you're using Encompass Developer Connect APIs, here's some updates. We're on page 98. We've got the buy down rates and term at the lock request is now used when creating and updating loans via API instead of using the buy down data at the loan level. Previously, when the buy down data both at the rate lock level and the loan data were modified, the buy down data at the lock request level was being overwritten with the data. Ooh, yeah. So if you had some issues with that, that's been resolved. Updates and enhancements to Encompass Web Input Form Builder. Ooh, fancy. So HMDA repurchase loan action field now available for custom input forms. Nice. That's cool. Lock icon now available to add to the annual flood premium field. Pretty cool, because that's important. New button, action plan codes. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I'm geeking out on this stuff because why not? Fixed issues on input form builder. Issue resolved when importing form package that includes JavaScript files. So it was failing. Now it's been resolved. That's good because we need JavaScript files as part of the package. Custom fields with yes, no format now displaying values correctly as YN. Cool. That's the end. We made it. And again, this is the preview release notes. When we get the actual release notes, we'll do maybe an update depending on what happens. Super happy that this is happening. I really honestly can't begin to express how excited I am that we're able to do a lot of this cool stuff with Encompass Web in conjunction with, in addition to what we're already doing on desktop. So super cool stuff. Thanks, Ice Mortgage Technology. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and hopefully this has been helpful. Let me know either way. We'll see you there. Bye-bye.